Well, here I go again. This is the video for the 21st of July, and the title is Working Through the Confusion. I've had several requests to make a video on a certain subject. Of course, those suggestions are not the same. Some would require much more research than I am willing to do. Besides, how does one trust any source to find supposed answers when virtually everything has been purposely mixed with disinformation or wishful thinking? That makes it a virtually impossible task. And I had virtuously because that was a spell check and it had showed me the wrong correction. That's what gave me the pause there, folks. I better change that so that I don't accidentally leave it in. Oh my goodness. And no matter what I find or choose to believe is true, there will be those who totally disagree. With all that's going on in the world at present, the confusion is rampant globally and infecting each of us personally. As for me, I choose to focus as best I can on results that I believe will benefit humanity as a whole and bring an end to the domination of the few who seem to be demon-possessed, wanting to control and enslave the many, until all of us are finally free. None of us are truly liberated. Indeed, I get suggestions from a lot of people. And if several people were wanting the same thing, it would make it a little bit easier to narrow it down on a subject to talk about. But the handful of people, 5 or 6 people that make suggestions, one wants me to focus on this issue, and another wants me to focus on that issue, and another one over here, another issue. And, you know, there's a lot of confusion, as I said in the blurb. And people want answers. And for a long time, I presented my videos thinking that I was giving answers that were concrete and reliable. But I've come to the conclusion that I don't have reliable answers, which some people might say, well, then why are you still doing videos? Because for one thing, it's become a habit to do the video every day or to put a video out every day. For another thing, I have to do something, and I don't want to lose hope. I still want to see the world that I've envisioned since I was a child, since I was a teenager at the very least. I want to see that world come into fruition and manifestation. I want to see the tables turned so that the world becomes a free world. It's not free as long as you have enslavers in charge. And that's what we have in the world that we live in. It's been enslaved by the fiat currency, the dollar created with backing of nothing, but even the monetary system itself, even if it was gold and silver backed and backed by precious, by things that are supposedly have value, even if it was backed by those things, it would still be a slavery system. We've got to ultimately get out of the thing that we work for money. Because that's always going to be a slavery system. That's how money came into existence. It was an alternative to forcing slaves to work because the productivity of the slaves, as I've said before, was way, way down. And they figured, well, if we pay them, they're not going to know they're slaves. They're going to think that they're just workers and they're getting paid for their labor. And so the whole system was set up as a means of control by originally the priesthood, and the priesthood has now become a political class, and specifically the banker class, because it's international bankers that have claimed control. And these people, the people at the very top of that, do not work. They don't have jobs. They sit around trying to figure out ways that they can steal from everybody else. They live high on the hog. They live in mansions that are unbelievably, unbelievably ridiculous. The amount of space that some of these mansions take up, and they have all sorts of slaves working for them. The police forces have become the slaves of this elite establishment, and the military are the slaves of this elite establishment. And most of the people that work in the Western world, and probably the Eastern world too, because I don't believe it's that China is apart from it. I still think that Russia is the only country that offers any hope to the world for leveling the playing field. I really do believe that. And it's not just because of Anastasia or Anastasia. It's because Vladimir Putin seems to be a different kind of a player. He seems to be willing to tell the truth. He doesn't play, to me, there's a resonance there. And I really think he's going to be a key player in the shift. But I don't know when the shift is going to happen. I wish to God I did. I mean, as I've said many times before, I thought it was going to happen a few years ago, at the very least a few years ago. By 2012, I figured it was all over. But it's not all over, and if anything, it's gotten even worse since then, because the elite establishment are digging in their heels and resisting the change that ultimately it's going to come. But will it come in my lifetime? Will it come before the world, before humanity is destroyed again? There's lots of people that have a lot of nice things to say, and I still listen to Sheldon Neidl and others like that. But the things that they're saying don't happen. And I've been listening to them for years. I mean, even before I started making the daily videos, I was listening to some of these people. And still, nothing material actually comes about. And I don't believe in pie in the sky. That is a cop-out. That is a way to get us not to focus on making the changes that need to be made in the world to make the world a habitable place for honest people, for people with a good heart. And I believe that ultimately, except for the corruption, we all would have a good heart. But many have been trained, literally bred to be evil. And I believe that's true of the Clintons and the Bushes and, of course, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. But then again, not everybody with these last names is going to be evil. We're talking about specific portions of these families with these names. And some names are just made up names, like the Rothschilds isn't their real name. They made that up. Anyway, folks, pray for me, but pray for each other. We need to somehow find a way to get our Creator to take the action that needs to be taken. You don't like me saying that, or even Aristo, I don't believe, likes me saying that. It's up to the Creator, because without some kind of a miracle that turns things around and rights some of the wrongs, there will not be any change except for maybe annihilation. We're moving toward that if we continue down the road that the elite establishment, and they will not be saved either. It will be a remnant of who knows what, people that live in the wilderness somewhere that somehow escape the confusion of the annihilation that takes place in most of the populated areas of the planet. Anyway, pray for one another. That's all I can say. And pray that God finally takes action. Because if God doesn't do it, it ain't going to get done as far as I'm concerned. Thank you for listening, putting up with me yet another time. Namaste.